There we go. Hopefully the lighting's good. Today, well, not really today, but like one thing that I have been focusing a lot on for 2026 is like this idea of a Durping state, and that's Durping. Durping is choosing comfort and low agency when there's no external demand forcing excellence. It's not mainly procrastinating or being scattered. It's the slow choice of ease, convenience, and dullness over sharpness and self-command. It's the thought, why should I run at 100 when 60% keeps me alive and comfortable? The cycle of like that this takes, that I've noticed personally, is like you have a moment of clarity and you realize you're not operating at the 100% or all that you could be. You have this desire in you to be the best you can. And like, okay, let's do this. So whether or not you do like 75-day hard, or you start a new diet or a new workout routine, like you start off really well. And I mean, hell, everyone experience like this is the classic New Year trope of overcorrecting, and then over time you relax into it because you give in to the internal lawyer, what I call it, that says like, well, technically, like I don't know, you could consider honey to be a spice, therefore you could have it on keto and carnivore or lion diet. Then you start coasting, and over time it just decays. And then your habits fall apart. You stop going to the gym. You stop being all that you can be. You relax. And you can stay in that relaxed state for anywhere between a week or two to a couple months. And it sucks. Like when you realize, shit, I'm not doing everything I could be. I'm not operating at 100%. I am like on my phone scrolling. Why am I wasting my time? Like, I've had moments of clarity, and like if you looked at the channel, you'll see this where I have periods where I talk about like how I don't like morning routines and they're not very beneficial. And I think that's true in a sense of when your brain is working, when everything's going really well, having a very rigid morning routine can feel more like a prison. But when you need to get yourself on track, that morning routine is really, really useful. So I never really realized like how the different cognitive states I was in at the time reflected what my system or how my system should be operating. So for 2026, I've been sitting down for the past month and really just writing this out and coming up with a system. And for me, it's an anti-derping system, and I'll be going over that tomorrow. Then also talking about putting it into effect and how that's been working. But it's basically, how can I catch myself before I slide and stay in a state of high agency and where I'm very conscious and kind of in a flow state. You don't always realize when you're in it because your brain doesn't like admitting that it doesn't have as much control as you think you have over yourself. And I prefer to think of myself kind of as like a black box where you can kind of think of it as two brains in your head, and this is especially easy when I'm driving because I can kind of like disassociate while still driving the car and realize that I'm paying like very little attention to, or I'm not really thinking about where to turn, or I'm not feeling where to turn or how it's going, but I'm still driving the car. And you kind of notice this habitual self and then this other voice in your head, and that those are two different things. You have the voice which you consider to be yourself, which is the thing talking in your head, and then you also have the like a habitual body which will go through motions and do certain tasks. Like there's very little that I can actually control, and you're kind of just sitting in there watching this other person operate, and you yourself have very little control over that other person, but you have to pick and choose how you do it. And by exposing that secondary person to different media or like going for a walk or hanging out with new people, you can trigger certain thoughts which will then trigger, and then when those thoughts are triggered, you can then decide whether or not you want to act on those thoughts, and then you can trigger actions based on those thoughts, and those actions will then change your environment, and your environment will then introduce new thoughts for which your brain can either take or dismiss. But if you actually meditated and noticed this stuff, you're like, oh shit, I have extremely little control over my thoughts. Like, how do you make yourself think of something? Can you? No. Like It's extremely difficult. You kind of just have thoughts that pop into your head, and you decide, do I want to entertain this thought and see where it goes, or do I not want to entertain this thought? By entertaining a thought, you can make it more likely that that thought will then pop into your head at future points, but you can't really control what thoughts get put into your head besides that. And you can read books and you can look at other people's thoughts, and that's really good, but like, I don't know, make a thought pop into your head. Like, have you thought about that? Like, what thought is popping into your head? Do you have control over it? It's like, no, random thoughts just kind of pop into your head throughout the day, and you can either choose to be like, no, you know what, I don't really want to act on that, or yeah, I'll act on that. Besides that, you really have no other choice. And then whether or not you act on that thought will shape your environment, and that will in turn help shape your thoughts. So like, you can influence it, but you can only ever influence it slightly, which is why it's so difficult to actually change yourself. So with all that in mind, I get to work designing a system to keep me in the most conscious state I can possibly be in. I'm sure you've experienced times when your brain was working better than other times, when you're going to bed on time, sticking to habits, and generally doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video has at some point gotten into a doom scroll type thing where you just scrolled for like an hour or two and you're like, holy shit, where'd that time go? And then your mind feels all like, and you're like, I don't like this state. Why did I get into it? But your mind's not really working well. That's like not like on the spectrum of where your mind can be. That's like here. And then you have like, you can go way further down to like drug addiction, but you also have like that Durping mind state of scrolling where your brain's just like frazzled. And then you have like, oh, you're pretty good and you can think and you're working pretty well. And then you have this whole region over here to explore. And that's where I want to spend my time. Because like, if you look at books, if you look at a lot of stuff, it's pretty fucking stupid. Like, it's so obvious. Like, if you actually look at the thoughts of how people come up with what they're saying, it's like, no duh. If you listen to like business advice, it's like, oh, listen to what your customer says and change your product and develop rapidly. No duh, like duh. But like, we get into these states where we're not necessarily thinking for ourselves and we're trying to outsource that thinking to other people. And then we look at other people and we read books as a way of trying to solve our problems, hoping that they'll say something that we can use. And I'm like, that's kind of stupid. Like, I mean, that works if you accept that that's the state you're always going to be in and you can't necessarily improve your state. But since you can improve your state and you can make your mind work better, you should do that. Like, you should make your mind work and be as clear as it can possibly be, because once you have a really clear mind, you can look at stuff objectively and you can apply the 80-20 principle, which basically says 20% of the stuff will produce 80% of the outcomes. And you can find the highest leverage activities and then do those high leverage activities to then get outsized returns. And that's how you, that's literally how you have to operate, or else there's just not enough time in the day to do anything. So I'm basically out here, I'm like, okay, I know, I've been in those higher consciousness states where my mind's amazing, my thinking's so clear, and I've been like smoking weed for 3 months coming out of a fog where I basically scrolled like TikTok, I never had TikTok, but basically just scrolled on Instagram for like a whole day, and my mind was like, and I'm like, how do I make sure I stay in this section? How do I make sure my mind always operates at its best? And the thing is, when you get there, the habits you need to get there, once you get there, can also act as a jail, making life really rigid and, well, too rigid to actually fully embrace the higher aspects of that state, because the rigidity will take you out of flow state. Like, imagine you're in an amazing flow state, getting a bunch of work done, and then you're like, oh, well, I need to go take my ice bath right now, or I need to go do the sauna right now because my system says I need to go do the sauna. That's kind of fucking stupid, man. That's like really stupid. You should continue your work, and then once your work is done, go do your sauna. Because being in a flow state, like that's the whole point of the system, is to be in that flow state. So once you're in the flow state, you should use up the flow state and then make sure you recharge so that you then can get back into the flow state later on. But you shouldn't be leaving your flow state to go attend other tasks. You should stay in that flow state for as long as you can, and then once you leave, do everything you need to do to ensure that you can get back into it the next day. So in order to stop myself from backsliding, I've come up with a list of what I call tripwires, and that's like, if I start going unconscious and if my habits start sliding a little bit, it does tell me where I'm slacking and where there's an area that could cause me to backslide down to lower states of consciousness, whether that's my sleep falling apart, my not going to the gym, not eating clean, using too much social media, smoking weed. That's just horrible for me. You want to stay in those higher consciousness states because your mind works way better, like way better, especially nowadays with like social media and AI. If you can think clearly, you can really use all the leverage to your advantage. And then part of the system, I also, like, we have activities we do. Like, oh, I need to drink a gallon of water a day, go to the gym, hit the sauna, maybe an ice bath, meditate, read 10 pages, do my morning yoga, do some breath work, play with my cats. Like, you have all this stuff you want to do throughout the day, and go hunting. Like, and yes, all of it does actually help you get into a higher consciousness state. But the thing that can happen is you can get caught up in these lower, I always call it lower leveraged habits, and it can wind up negatively affecting it. Like, I didn't realize this, but like during the hunting season, I got so obsessed with hunting, and because for the first time in my life, I shot 3 deer. There's a giant deer skull right there. It's pretty cool. But I bagged 3 deer, and I got hooked. And all I did for a week and a half was I just hunted. And I skinned the deer and prepped the meat and did all the stuff. And then I look back on it and I'm like, holy shit. I still did my business and worked on it, but like I fell way behind because I hadn't set anything up to like catch myself. So my priorities shifted, and even though I was being like hyper conscious in the woods hunting, I still kind of entered a derping state because I wasn't paying attention to what I should have been paying attention to. So with that said, the solution that I'm figuring will work is basically ranking your activities by how critical they are for you to maintain that high consciousness state, and then doing the highest ranked ones first. And if you want to, after you finish the higher ranked ones, you can do the other ones. But this whole thing is just like, you have limited time during the day. So in order to maintain a high consciousness state, what do you have to do? And then once you do what you have to do, because the most important thing is just maintaining that state, then what else do you want to do? Do you want to go for a walk? You have to kind of decide for you how that ranking goes, how important each one is. And for me, sleep. I protect sleep from everything else. If my sleep goes, my whole life goes to shit. If I don't go for a walk tonight, I'll be fine. Like, sure, I love going for a walk, but like, if I don't go for my walk, I'm fine. Like, if I don't go for a walk for a while, I can kind of get like kind of cagey, but like, I can easily skip a walk and my brain still works. I can easily not drink a gallon of water a day and my brain still works pretty fine. It might not be like 100%, it might be 99%, but like drinking a gallon of water isn't that important. So I shouldn't be weighting it as that important. I should have it where it belongs within the system so that I don't wind up wasting my time and wasting the mental bandwidth I have trying to keep track of something that actually doesn't really matter that much. What else? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to design a system that alerts me before I drift back into less consciousness and help me stay in those states, because if you're in a less conscious state, the best thing you can possibly do is to train your mind to be in a more conscious state. That sounds easy, but it's really not. If you can do it, it's basically like unlocking your brain. You're unlocking the intuition. You'll think more clearly than you ever thought before, and you'll be able to get so much more work done than you ever could before because of how clearly you can now think. Part of the system is also brainwashing because of what I said earlier. with how you can't really control what thoughts pop into your head that well. So if you've ever said like, oh, I'm not gonna eat any carbs. You're like, okay, you're not gonna eat any carbs. But like you haven't really had that thought that many times. It's like, oh, you thought you're gonna stop doing it. And then you go and you're just eating dinner and you're maybe at someone else's house and you just like, you grab it and you put some food in your mouth. They're like, oh, there's carbs in that. I forgot I wasn't eating it anymore. Or I forgot I didn't want to do it. Or maybe you're like, oh, I'm gonna work out in the morning. You say that to yourself, but you kind of forget that you said that to yourself, so it slips out of your mind. That's one thing I want to avoid. And I do believe in the power of brainwashing. And by that, I mean, I have a system that I wrote up. It's like 100 pages in Word. It goes really in depth. I'm going to be making tons of videos on it. But I summarized that system in just 4 pages. It's pretty simple. And it's basically what I explained to you already. But I'm going to be going a lot more in depth in it and why it's set up the way it is. I read this 2 to 3 times a day because it reminds me what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, so that when the thoughts pop into my head of like, I mean, is it really important that we go to bed right now? Why can't we stay out later? Like, should I, like, maybe I'm hanging out with someone, they bring out some weed. It's like, oh, do you want it? I'm like, well, I remember because I read it 3 times that day, and every other day from now, I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't like who I am when I smoke. I go unconscious. I lose track of it. I stop working out as much. Shit just doesn't get done. So the whole idea here is to figure out how to stay in the highest conscious state I can possibly be in. I mean, there's that promise. There's nothing I haven't ever been able to figure out. If I focused on it, I'll throw off all waste and distractions to become the man I know I can be. That is my goal. Like, that is the goal for the system. Whether or not the system works or whether I have to fix it, I don't know. Like, that's what I'm going to be documenting for the next couple months. I do not know if the system works. I think it will work. I've iterated on it already. I think it will. I think it's good, but I don't know. All I know is that there's nothing I haven't ever been able to figure out if I focused on it. And I'll throw off all distractions to become the man I know I can be. And by making the videos daily, saying this, setting my goals, publicly announcing the goals, I increase the chance of this happening so that I can make a system in order to stay in those higher consciousness states. That's the oath. The oath is that I'll throw off everything to become the man I know I can be, and that there's nothing I haven't ever been able to accomplish. And then what I'm going to accomplish is I'm going to fucking design a system that allows me to stay in those higher consciousness states, stops me from backsliding, so that I can just one-way rocket ship, like Week 2 Warrior. I was thinking about this. I'm like, my company's named Week 2 Warrior. I mean, I have been on this journey of Week 2 Warrior from the time I was like 12, and I actually started improving myself. And I'm like, I bet if I could, like, I can unlock my true autistic capabilities to really just, like, make a system that you can follow. That's what I hate. Like, all these, I've read so many books, and they're all, like, they give you these concepts, and I'm like, yes, thank you and all, but at the same time, like, it wouldn't hurt to be like, do this, go full autism mode, hit repeat, and 6 months from now, as long as you continue doing this, you're going to be in a completely different state. Granted, there is a challenge in continually doing it, but for me, and what I'm figuring out is that the continually doing it is 2 things. One of them is not negotiating with yourself. There is an internal lawyer that will negotiate on the part of your lazy ass in order to get you out of activities. You don't technically have to do these push-ups. I mean, you could wait and go to bed in an hour and it won't be that bad. Like, you have to kill that fucking voice in you. You have to identify that voice and you have to fucking kill the lawyer. Like, just do not listen to it, because that is the path to mediocrity. And then the second part is you need to stay conscious of the goals. If you can do 2 things, I think the system will work. If you can kill that lawyer, and then you also read the brainwashing sheet daily, I think this system will work, because what you need to do will stay on your mind. And then you will catch yourself. There's a book that kind of inspired this, and it's called The World's Greatest Salesman. And you're supposed to read 1 chapter of the book first thing in the morning, at lunch, last thing before bed. You're supposed to do that 3 times a day, and then move on to the next chapter. And it's supposed to last, I think it's like 10 chapters in total. But like, holy shit, like you can brainwash yourself pretty well. However, I never really got past the 6th chapter. I never caught myself when the habit started to degrade, and then it just kind of fell apart. So I would like, the lawyer was like, oh, like you're technically reading it if you just skim it really fast. So like after you've done it and you read it like 30, 40 times, you're like, oh, just skim it, done. You're not actually reading it. Like that drift already happening and already setting in, and that's why you need to set tripwires to catch that kind of thought, because otherwise you're like, oh, life hack, or like, oh, I could just read this out loud, play it as an audiobook, and then do other things. It's like, no, you need to actively be focusing on the words you said and reading those out loud and hear them to brainwash yourself, because if you brainwash yourself with what you want to do, it will be front and foremost in your mind. And that's like one of the things I've figured out about how to brainwash yourself is you put a piece of paper on your desk with the thoughts you want to have, and then you look at that piece of paper and you read that list of thoughts, and it will trigger, like, because what I said, you don't really have the capability of putting thoughts into your head. So how do you do that? Well, when you have a thought, you have to write it down. Like, you have to write it down. And I have systems set up to do that. But I've realized how difficult it is to put a thought into your head or make yourself think about something. So I have a whole system set up of how to best do that. And part of it is capturing that thought. And for that, I use the reminders app in my phone. And I have a bunch of like custom shortcuts I wrote because Siri sucks right now. And like you tell it a thought, it grabs 3 words randomly and turns it into a bullet list. I'm like, what the hell is that? I gave you like this beautiful articulate thought in a paragraph form. And you grabbed like 3 words at a time and you made it a bullet list while leaving out 90% of what I said. Like, I've yelled at Siri, and it is a great annoyance to me that I know no matter how much I yell at Siri or GPT, I can never truly make it feel sad. But anyways, besides that, once you have those thoughts, you need to write them down on a piece of paper, and then you need to condition yourself to look at that piece of paper often in order to have that thought repeatedly go through your head. And when that thought is repeatedly going through your head, you'll then be able to think about how to best implement that thought throughout the day, because neurons that fire together wire together. So the more you think about something, the easier it is to think about. And that's basically how you train yourself. So anyways, hopefully the lighting for this is not shit, but I'm gonna cut it up and post it. I will be posting daily videos talking about the system, breaking it down, and going in depth on how I'm doing it, because like, I'm pretty good right now. Like, I came out of I got into a fog with the whole hunting thing, especially like once you have a deer, you need to like carve it up, and watching TV while doing it, well, just having it in as background play. So at the end, my thoughts were like, and my brother just commented on like how I wasn't really focused, and I was like, oh shit, how do I make sure that never happens again? And that kind of started me down this path.